Today, I want to talk a little bit about binary. And I've sometimes referred to binary as the keys to the kingdom because when you understand how binary operates, it makes a lot of other things in networking make sense. So let's jump right in. So as far as agendas, we'll do a quick introduction. We'll answer the question, why binary? Why is this such a big deal? Why should you even learn it? I came across a website where two students had done a report on binary and came to the conclusion that it was silly and didn't make any sense. So we'll talk about why it's a big deal. And we'll talk about the components of binary without getting too deep into the weeds, and then we'll wrap up. All right, so just by way of introduction, binary is literally foundational to everything in networking. If you look at the binary math, a lot of the things make sense. Binary is a system of numbering based on twos. It's sometimes called base 2. As such, there are two digits, 0 and 1. And understanding the principles of binary, again, can help make a lot of other things make more sense. So why binary? Why would you take the time to even do this, other than I told you so, which isn't a good enough reason? Well, a couple of reasons. As human beings, we count by tens because we have 10 fingers. Ironically, they're called digits. The Hindu-Arabic system of numbers uses base 10, and it's been around for a very long time. Typically, kids start counting on fingers. It is interesting that Mayans used a base 20 system, so the Mayans of the Latin America region. But typically we've used 10 because that's what we've used to count. Computers are different. They are machines. And these machines are electrical in nature. They have circuits and they carry electricity. Because of that, there are two operational states of any circuit. On, which means the current is flowing, and off, which means the current is not flowing. Now, if you want to get clever and say, well, what about dimmer switches? Technically, even at its lowest setting, a dimmer switch still is using power. It's making power flow. So it's still on. So that's a little bit about the why of binary. Let's talk a little bit about the components of binary. So again, we already talked about zeros and ones, again, representing a circuit that's off, which is a 0, and a circuit which is on, which is 1, represented by the light bulb images here. Binary digits are called bits. So you hear about 8 bits and 16 bits and 64 bits. This is all based on binary. Leading zeros in a numeral are often omitted, and there are different groupings. Sometimes you'll hear something called a byte, which is 8 bits, sometimes called an octet. You'll see that a lot in IP addressing. One that's newer that I hadn't heard before is a nibble, which is 4 binary digits. And as far as odd and even numbers, binary numbers that are odds end in 1, binary numbers that are even end in 0. The other thing that happens in binary is what is called places. So we'll talk about more about this in another video, but in tens, decimal, you have powers of tens. 1, 10, 100, 1,000, and so forth. In binary, it's all based on twos, and it's based on multiplying 2 by itself. For example, anything with 0 power is 1, 2 to the first power is itself, which is 2, 2 to the second power is 2 times 2, which is 4. 2 to the third power, the 8th place, is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8, and so forth. And you see represented here a binary number on top, the powers of 2 spelled out here, and then the places of each one of these. We're using 8 because later with IP addressing, it'll make more sense. You can see how this number was derived by the number of 2s that are multiplied against. And at the bottom, the binary number at the top and the decimal number broke into place numbers at the bottom, which will come in handy later when we do binary to decimal to binary conversion. Binary is at the heart of networking. It took me a while to deal with this because I was afraid of math. That's a whole other story. But it really does make everything else make sense. A lot of technical things are going to make more sense when you look at the binary math. Binary or base 2 is a numbering system based not on tens, but on twos. And binary uses the digits of 0 and 1 to represent numbers. Hope this was fun for you. Keep on learning.